Good day, and welcome to the annual Syosset High School Financial Aid Information Night. Um, it's now September 2022, and as of October 1, 2022, the entire financial aid process really begins with the activation of various applications provided by the federal government and many other colleges and universities. So let me introduce myself. I'm Joseph Shiami. I am a former financial aid administrator, having served 27 years at St. John's University as Director of Financial Aid, then Dean, and then Vice President of Financial Aid and Financial Information Services. I have had much experience in reviewing thousands and thousands of the applications related to financial aid over the many years. And I'm here today to now offer you some very general advice. And I use the word general because we live in a different age from when I first began in student financial aid service. At that point, there was much printed material that we would be bringing out to high schools and financial aid fairs and college fairs. And in today's world, there is so much on the system in terms of technology that one just has to pump up the words financial aid, and that will lead you into an entire world of information by the various colleges, universities, federal government, and state governments. So a lot of information is available. The purpose of the program right now is to give you just a general idea of what the financial aid policies are, and then to lead you through a walkthrough of the FAFSA form, the most important form that's involved in filing for financial aid. So let me give you just a little bit of a background. And I know that audiences don't like to stay with us throughout the entire session, but trust me, it'll be worth it. Many people ask me, should we hire a professional to walk us through the process of filing for our son or daughter? And I usually say no, because in many cases, they're going to charge you a lot of money. They won't be necessarily credentialed people having a full grasp of student financial aid processes. So my best advice is really to keep it simple, to get the general information, and then to keep up with the filing dates. That's the most important thing. So when we talk about financial aid, those words sometimes get stuck in people's throat because they say, I don't want financial aid. I just want grant money. I want scholarship money, or I want loan money. Well, when the colleges, universities use the terminology financial aid, we mean the bigger picture. We mean everything. We mean grants, scholarships, student loans. We mean college work-study programs, federal or state programs that might be available. We talk even about the 529 plan. So financial aid is the whole gamut. And so the real question is then, how do the colleges and universities judge your financial need? That's another two words that are interesting, financial need. Financial need is the difference between the cost of a collegiate expense minus your contribution, and that will give you your financial need. So let's say a school costs $70,000 and you do everything we tell you to do today, and the system shows that you can come up with $50,000, then what we would say is your financial need would be $20,000. So it's a very simple formula. So financial aid are all the programs, and financial need is the difference between the cost of college and your family contribution, which comes from the objective need analysis. So some of those buzzwords get people confused at times, even myself when I first started, I think. So financial need analysis means that we provide you with an objective form, the FAFSA, the financial aid, the federal financial aid program form. And you're going to see that in a minute. We're going to put it up on the screen, but right now give you the general information. What happens is that one fills out this application once a year. It is renewable each of the 4 or 5 years of collegiate study, depending on the program that one might be in. And in the first year, in filling out the form, you'll have the opportunity to have the federal government verify the information through the filing of your prior year's income tax information. In point of fact, the FAFSA form goes back 2 years. It asks you for the past year that closed which would have obviously been 2021, and then 22, and then potentially when things possibly change in 23, you're going to have to inform the college of those changes. So this federal form, the FAFSA form, is going to collect data, and then once the data is collected, it's going to drive out, based on a federally approved congressional formula, it's going to drive out your family contribution. And that contribution, when colleges and universities review it, they're then going to try to develop for you what we call a financial aid package. So the end of the process that I will be explaining to you about in the next number of minutes will result in you, the student, and parents receiving a financial aid award letter. And in that letter, it will detail all of the different types of financial aid that one can receive. So before, when I mentioned to you about what is financial aid consists not only of the grants, the loans, the scholarships, work study, whatever, but they have to come from somewhere. And so what we have now are federal monies, state monies, and college money, or institutions of higher education. And these monies can consist of different types of monies. So for example, in the federal government, you'll find out the most prevalent program, the most important program, is the Pell Grant Program. That program now has a maximum of $6,800 a year. And that is just one federal program, so that when you fill out the FAFSA, automatically you're going to get considered for the Pell Grant. In addition, once the college receives it, they're also going to consider the student for supplemental educational opportunity grant money. Or they may consider the student for college work study money, where the student works part-time, usually 10 to 15 hours a week. And then after that, the monies come from the federal government, 70% of the salary and 30% from the institution of higher education from where the student is hired. And then on top of it all, there are the student loan programs. And let me caution all of us, myself included, we know that a loan is a loan is a loan. It always has to be paid back. And now, of course, we keep reading about what the president is going to do in order to solve this of repayment. But I can tell you right now that many of the facts on that is unknown at this point in time. So for your particular sons and daughters in taking out student loans, make sure they read the fine print. That's what's most important. There'll be plenty of loans available, and there are two types of loans. Loans that are subsidized, meaning the interest does not accrue while the student is in college, or unsubsidized, where the interest is accruing. And of course, in an unsubsidized situation, the loan has to be paid back oftentimes when the student is in school, whereas the subsidized loan, the loan does not get paid back until after graduation, usually in a 10-year period. So again, whatever you're reading in the paper about student loan indebtedness, it's a very serious issue. In point of fact, we now have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of students who are in some kind of repayment owing $1.3 trillion. So it's a very bad national situation that has to be addressed by the federal government, and it will be. And as I've said, the President of the United States would like to alleviate students from paying back all of that money. But for your students, they'll be starting out on a new track. So those were the federal programs that I spoke about: the Pell Program, Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant, college work study, and student loans. On top of that, now you have the state government. What might the state government here in New York? Of course, if a student goes to a college in New York State, whether that be 2-year, 4-year, or whatever, and now even part-time, the student can be eligible for the Tuition Assistance Program, TAP. That program is based on our New York State net taxable income. The application comes from the FAFSA form. So when the student fills out the FAFSA form, information from the FAFSA goes back to New York State, and New York State, based on the net taxable income from that year will then figure out the student's eligibility. The most a student can receive in terms of a TAP award, it had been a maximum of $5,500. That also will be going up in the coming year. And that will be either for, as I said, a 2-year, 4-year program, but only used in New York State. There's no portability to taking out a student loan, a student TAP award to another state. No other state provides us money, and we in New York do not provide a student to take money out. In addition, New York State many years ago, did have many academic awards. That has all been cut away. Now it is simply based on financial need, and financial need based on a parent's New York State net taxable income on your 201 form. In addition to all that, colleges and universities provide a tremendous amount of financial aid. In fact, billions of dollars, because without the money that we provide, many students would never be able to afford a collegiate experience. So as a result, it's not uncommon for colleges and universities to provide scholarships and grants of maybe $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 based on academic achievement. If a particular college or university wants a student, they're going to offer a student a very good financial aid package. When a student does not have those high grades or high SATs or high any kind of standardized test, then the next thing would be to consider a student for a grant and aid. And grants and aid could be based on academics, they could be based on financial need, they could be based on athletics, or particular financial interest to the college or university. In addition, some colleges and universities have their own loan programs where these loans are perhaps less percentage-wise in borrowing than the federal government. And as a result, if that were to be offered to you or to your son or daughter, that's something certainly to be looked at. And of course, also colleges and universities hire students on a part-time basis. So that's something that one may want to look into along the way after the student, of course, is registered on the collegiate experience. And then last but certainly not least, after the federal government, the state government, colleges and universities would be that whole unknown body of scholarships, which would come from external sources. So for example, one might be a member of a particular union where there are scholarships offered by that union to its personnel. So if you work for the electrical industry or Local 32BJ or Local 1500 or any other union, make sure that you as a parent check to see what scholarships are being offered. As well, if you are a member of some ethnic society or group that offers a scholarship, make sure that you do the research on that to find out what the filing deadline dates might be. And then, of course, there are scholarships from the Rotary International, Kiwanis Club, and many, many other groups. That takes a little bit of research. And here again, by pumping up the words financial aid, that should lead you into an entire world of new eligibility and abilities. So those are the 4 areas: federal government, state government, colleges and universities, and private sources. All pulled together. When a college receives your application, they will then consider you. In terms of timing, many people want to know when is the best time to be filing for admissions and financial aid. Well, right now, school has just started less than a month ago. So naturally, we want people to start filing for admissions for the 2023 September year when it starts. So many colleges and universities are encouraging early admission. They're encouraging that you file now before Thanksgiving, submitting your application, your transcript, your standardized tests, if they're required. Many colleges are no longer requiring such, or letters of recommendation. So all of that needs to be done. And at the same time now, as I mentioned initially, beginning on October 1, the system of filing for financial aid goes live on the FAFSA site that we're now going to take a look at. You can all see the FAFSA form in front of you, which is what we call the free application for federal student aid. See the emphasis on the word free at the very top. That's interesting that the federal government wants you to see that, and I'll tell you why. Because many people in America in this past year, there was a precipitous drop in the number of people filing for financial aid, and the federal government became very concerned about that. So as a result, they've emphasized the word free. So how do you get into the system? Once you go on the FAFSA website, and that is produced by the federal government, the Department of Education, this will lead you to the application process. In other words, there's no money required for it, and I can tell you now that every college and university in America is going to require that particular form. Now, will there be other forms that you'll have to fill out in addition to the FAFSA? It is possible. There are approximately 300 to 400 other colleges and universities in America that still require additional forms. Now, why would they want something additional to this FAFSA? Because they feel that the FAFSA form does not ascertain or ask you sufficient information. I personally think it does. I know that at my university it's been sufficient, but at many colleges it is not. And so the other form that you might have to deal with is called Profile. It's put out by the College Scholarship Service of the College Board, and it is now live on the system. You can get on College Scholarship Service and you would see that form. My only and total advice is to check it out and see the listing of the colleges that require that form, because not all colleges in America, remember, we have 7,500 colleges, universities, and proprietary schools in America. So actually only 300 to 400 of them don't want that. 300 to 400 want the additional profile form, and all the others do not want it. They are very happy with the FAFSA form. So when you get on the system, you're going to find out it's all done electronically. You're seeing a paper version up for you on the screen, but naturally you'll be doing this all electronically. And once it is finished, you're going to be doing it, sending it out electronically to a site that will then review it. And then at that federal site, when it is completely analyzed and reviewed, a student aid report, an SAR, will be produced, and that will be sent to the student and family, and then it will have a number on it. That number will not mean much to you, but for us at the colleges and universities, we will be receiving a copy of that analysis, and as a result, we will then be using that report to judge how much financial aid we will be awarding you. So again, the FAFSA form gathers data and drives it out and sends it to the colleges and universities. So back to when you should fill this out. Anytime after October 1. Could you do it in next January or February? You possibly could. I would not recommend it. I would recommend that when you apply for admission, that you also fill out the FAFSA form. There'll be a point in the FAFSA where they'll ask you for the names of the colleges that you want the form to be sent to. So you might be saying, well, my son or daughter yet does not know where they're going to school. But again, you're shopping around. So on the form, you can put up to 10 different colleges and universities that you want to receive the FAFSA form. And then once you get that student aid report, they'll give you another opportunity for 10 more colleges and universities. So my best advice is that you fill out the FAFSA certainly by the end of this year, the end of 2022. The reason I say that is so that this way, when your son or daughter is accepted at the college or university, the college or university will get the FAFSA form, unite the admission and financial aid information, and then try early to get him or her a financial aid package letter. So do not wait until the last minute to do such. So let's now take a look at this free form. You can basically see in front of you that they ask the student for very general information. And on this particular piece, I recommend that the student fills this out with the parent. It's a family situation. So basically they're asking in the prime boxes, the last name of the student, their first name, the address of the student, the complete address, make sure the zip code is put there, and the student's social security number. Very important. The student's date of birth, as well as the student's telephone number, because many times the college may want to call the student directly. Will they get it from other forms that the student is filling out? Probably, but the financial aid office is separate from the admissions office. They ask for the driver's license, if that were available, and number 13, the student's email address. That is very, very important. And even if I skip over a particular item, I'm trying to lead you through this in the most expeditious manner possible. So let's go a little bit further down to the next question. Okay, now you start seeing about citizenship. And remember now that we know that in the United States, there's a lot of leverage going back and forth trying to help non-citizens, but they still ask you if you are a citizen or a permanent resident. And for permanent resident, then you would give your registration number. Now, because this form is used by millions of people, sometimes the questions do not pertain to the student. So when they ask the student, what is your marital status? The form is probably used by upperclassmen and graduate students. So they're not married. I would hope not at this point, because most of them probably would be 17, 18 years of age. And then the number 17 would be not applicable. Number 18 is very important. What is the state of legal residence? Because in order to get state financial aid, they must be a resident. So that would be New York. And when did you become a resident? Number 21, they want to know here what you, the student, are. You will be graduating with a high school degree, and that will be number 21. All right. Or actually, they're asking for the parent. They want to know if the parents has had education, whether a middle school graduate, high school, college, university. 21 and 22 still involves some kind of data statistical research that's being done by the federal government. So please answer it as honestly as you possibly can. And then number 23, they're asking, will you have a high school diploma or a general ED? The idea is the students will all be getting a high school diploma. And number 24, they now want to know the name of this high school as well as its location. And then the last question, number 25, will you have a bachelor's degree before you begin? And of course the answer is no. So that's page number 1. As you can see, that's not very, very difficult at all. Now we're going to go to page number 2. In page number 2, they now start asking some very direct questions. So number 26, I would recommend always answering the first box. Never attended college and will be a first-year undergraduate, meaning that even if they took college-level classes at Syosset High School, that's not what they mean. Everybody should check off 26, that first box. In 27, I would assume they're all going to be pursuing a bachelor's degree. And then in number 28, when they offer, are you going to be looking for a work-study job? I see nothing wrong for that. If they expect to work part-time, I would answer yes to that. Moving this along, we have question 29. Now on question 29, they start asking the student questions about their income. And most of your sons and daughters at this point in their lives have earned some money, perhaps non-taxable money. They don't fill out a 1040. And so in reading those questions, you'll have to ascertain what is more applicable to them. So if they never filled out a 1040, they'll skip over those questions, but then they do ask them further down. In other words, number 33, what was your gross monies that you earned on a 1040? And then further down, number 35 and 36, as I see it, and you can see it, they're asking how much did you earn from work? So it's possible that they didn't earn enough to fill out a 1040, but they might have earned some money. Many parents and students ask me, but if it's a very low amount, should I even indicate it? I always say, if it's something that's traceable, where somebody's going to give you a W-2 form at the end of the year, make sure that you report it, because you never know if somebody is going to report you as not reporting sufficient information. So my best advice is to provide it all. And then number 37. Number 37, they now want to know about the student's cash, savings, and checking account. This is all money that the student might have in his or her name that is available to him or her. That obviously wouldn't include custodial money that's not available until they reach an older age, let's say 21 and out of college. So it's really only money that is available to them during the college experience. And then number 35, they want to know about any student investments, portfolio that they would have. And then finally, that final question, number 39, would not be applicable. That would only be applicable if they were married. Let's move that on to the next page. The next page concerns students' additional information that I would say right now for a dependent student, and your sons and daughters, by the way, are dependent, and you'll find that out in the next question. But in question, that question at the very top, that would not pertain to, I would say, almost 100% of them. In number 41, here is now where they're asking students in terms of other items if they are receiving other money, like child support that they're giving to any other children, and it indicates not to include such. So if there's any other untaxed income that the student is receiving, let's say because of a parent who's disabled, that would be reported in that particular section for the student only. Let's move that along because we'll be coming to the parents' information momentarily. On step 3, this is very important, where they're trying to find out if the student is dependent or independent. But as I just alluded to it, your sons and daughters are dependent, namely because of their age, and namely because they're living with you and when they were born. So in fact, they even ask you the question, will you be born before January 1st, 2000? And obviously the answer is no. As of today, are you married? The answer is no. At the beginning of the school year, are you pursuing a master's or above degree? No. Are you currently on active service? No. In the armed services? No. Do you have children that you provide more than half the support? I doubt that if you did have a child who had a baby at this point in their life, you probably would be supporting them. So in other words, most of the responses here will be no, with the exception of that one question that will indicate if one's natural parents were deceased. So question number 49, are your parents deceased? Or are you in foster care? Then that particular student would be automatically independent. Living with an aunt or an uncle who has not adopted a person does not make you independent. You are still dependent. So all of that particular step 3 must be answered to the best of one's ability. Okay, now we're in step number 4. And here you have what people ask about, well, who is the parent? The parent is the person with whom the student is living, and that's the person who actually fills out this particular FAFSA form. And at the very top, they're going to ask the student in number 55, what is the marital status of that parent filling out the form? Are they widowed? Are they single? Were they married? And when did that occur in number 56? And then in 57 and 61, you would put in the social security number of that parent with their other information, their last name, as well as date of birth. And then they even ask for one of the parents' email address in case they're trying to contact that particular person. And then when did you become a legal resident in that state? Question number 66, as I see it there. And in other words, people have questioned me before about divorced or separated situations. It is possible that a student may be living with one parent and the other parent is claiming the student. It is the parent always with whom the student lives, and that parent fills out the FAFSA form to his or her best availability. You do not put down any information about the other parent. However, if parent number one after a divorce has remarried and that student is living with that mother and the new father, let's say, as the example I'm giving you, then both the mother and that new father, step parent as it is, must provide income information. All right. Proceeding on to the next question, you'll see in number 69, they'll ask information about the particular parent, how many people are in the household. That would be everybody who is residing in the household with that family. And then the following question, how many are going to college at the same time? So in other words, they've been asking the ages of the parents with whom the student lives, the number in the family, and the number going to college at the same time. All of that information interacts with driving out the family's financial contribution. Because if you had, let's say, a high income, but you had more than one in college at the same time, you more than likely would be getting more financial aid. So it's very important to answer those questions to the best of your ability. And the final question there, number 71, as I see it, they're asking if you're receiving any other kind of federal benefits. Let's move on. Okay, here they are asking the parent if you have filled out a 1040, and obviously you've already done all that for the year 2022 when you filled that out last April, which obviously was for prior year income. So it all had to be done. And then they ask you in 77, what form did you fill out? Was it a 1040 or a 1040A or any other form? And then they ask you, were you single, head of household, or whatever? And then they ask if there were any other additional forms that you filled out. In addition, they want to still know if, in number 80, if a parent was a dislocated worker, meaning that you lost your job, you were put out of a job. That would perhaps provide you with even increased consideration for financial aid. Now, the next section is going to ask the parent for more data. So in other words, in number 81, they want to know your adjusted gross income for 2021. Here again, you see they're basing their consideration of your financial aid based on prior year data, 2021. So you might be thinking, well, 2021 was a very good year. 2022 has not been that good. How do I reflect that in my seeking financial aid? Once this FAFSA is filled out and goes to its destination, you do not refile a new FAFSA form, but you would write a good sound letter to the college or university. To each one of them, I would do one letter, and may, of course, keep a copy of that, and then send one to each college where you're filing for financial aid, describing how the situation as it was in 2021 was very favorable, and in 2022 it is not. Or let's say you do all of this before the end of the year, and now comes next April 2023, a condition has changed where you're laid off or you're retired. That too must be reported to the college or university, and then they will recalculate your family contribution based on the new documented data. In number 81, I gave you the adjusted gross income. In number 82, they want to know about the tax that is paid, because that's very important information. And then in 83, 84, they ask you that information in a different way. In other words, not so much your gross income, but what was it that you actually earned? And you get that from your W-2 form, what you earned during the particular year. In number 83 or 85, they now want to know the number of cash, savings, and checking accounts that you have. Now, this is where, if some of you have saved a 529 plan with the state of New York, that is where you would include it as part of your cash, savings, and checking accounts. You do not list it under student savings. It gets indicated there in number 85. And in number 86, they want to know the amount of your investments, any investments you have in your portfolio. That, of course, will be documented by your 1040. And remember, you will be allowing the federal government to verify information from your 2022 form that you filled out, which had all the income from 2021. They also ask you in number 86 the net worth of other parental investments. That would be your portfolio. That would be if you had bonds and other stocks. That would include a secondary home that you may own other than the home you live in. You do not put the home you live in, but only the other home that you might have or other property that you have. And if you co-own it with anybody, you'd only put your percentage of ownership there. And probably this is a good point in which to mention to you that if you did have to fill out that first form that I mentioned, the profile form is going to be far more intrusive. It's going to be asking you, do you own a home? When did you buy it? What did you pay for it? What is its value now? Do you have a remaining mortgage? Can you borrow against it, etc.? Again, the profile form is going to be far more intrusive. And then in number 87, they want to know the value of the parent's current business. However, they also suggest to you that if you have 100 or more workers, then obviously then the form is not, you do not provide that information, do not include it. Okay, in number 88, now they're asking more information about the parents. In other words, if you have other children in college right now, are you benefiting by educational credits? Or if you are paying out child support. So let's say the example I gave before, a student lives with the mother and her new husband, who would be a step-parent. Does that step-parent pay money out to his prior marriage if he was married in a prior way? And again, this section, number 88, is trying to ascertain if you are benefiting in any way from additional monies that are coming into your home. Most people will not have any, but some will. So make sure you answer every question on number 88. Let's go to 89. In question 89, here is where they would like to know exactly monies that are coming into the family. In other words, if you have tax deferred income, is that coming to you? Any IRA deductions for self-employment that you had to pay out? Any child support that has been received by the student and family must be reported. D, tax-exempt income. Or E, any untaxed income that's coming in. F, housing and food money that may come in from the federal government. In other words, Section 89 there is trying to gather all other income coming into the family. And by the way, in answering these questions, when it's not applicable or the answer is going to be 0, make sure that you do put a 0 there. Let's continue on. Now we're coming to step 5 and 6. In step 5, for the enrolled entering freshmen, there would not be any answers there. That's all for upperclassmen. In step number 6, what you're seeing is where you list the name of the college, its location, and where the student will be living in attending that college. When you get on the federal website, it will allow you up to 10 colleges. This paper version only allows you 4. And then at the very bottom of this here, normally if there was a paper version, you would be signing it. However, what happens here is that electronically, you'll be providing your own PIN. So your PIN takes the place of it, because obviously on a screen, you can't sign it. The federal government has not instituted that yet. If you can scroll that up a little bit, we might be able to see that. So see, on a paper version, step 7 is where one would sign it, whereas on the computer, you'll be using your PIN number. How will you get the PIN number? Well, October 1, when you get on the website, the student gets a PIN number as well as the parent. And then the parent uses that to use as its signature, and the student does the same thing. So let's talk a little bit about this again. You're filling this out electronically. Let's go back to the first page on the FAFSA form, the free application for federal student financial aid. And once you complete it and you sign off with your PIN number, it goes to that destination. And once it is processed, the FAFSA results get sent back to the student through the receipt of the student aid report, and then as well to the colleges and universities that you put on the form. If you have any changes to be made, the recommendation is that you do one good letter and you send that to each of the colleges and universities at the financial aid office to have them make the changes accordingly. At the same time, some colleges and universities will be checking and verifying information. They may ask you for a copy of your 1040 form along the way. Make sure you provide such to them. In terms of state financial aid, once you fill out the FAFSA, the information from the FAFSA goes back to the state of New York. The state of New York then computerizes the results, and if the student is eligible for a TAP, Tuition Assistance Program Award, then they will notify the student of that as well. So basically what happens is that when the colleges and universities want to offer you financial aid, they'll call it a financial aid package letter. And what we've created here for you to look at is the fact, here's a college that costs $60,000 a year. And from the FAFSA form, your expected family contribution was produced. And what it said is that you should be able, in this case, to come up with $30,000. So then subtracted, it gave you your financial need of $30,000. So the question would be then, how would the financial aid office package the student? So the first thing that they would probably plug in would be a Stafford student loan of $3,500. Then we would put in a college work-study program of $4,500, meaning the student would probably be working 10 hours a week at $15 a week, $15 an hour, which would be $150 a week multiplied by 30 college weeks. So that gives you the $4,500. In this case, we just estimated a $1,000 New York State TAP award. We did plug in the maximum Pell Grant for this student at that time of $63.45, and a Perkins loan of $4,000. That's a revolving loan fund that had been in existence, which is somewhat being phased out, but it perhaps could be worked as well. And then the college or university gave the student a scholarship or grant of $86.55. And then to round this package out, to meet the student's full financial need, they came up with the $2,000 outside scholarship or a parent loan for undergraduate students. I would watch those plus loans. These are loans that the colleges, universities sometimes put in to meet the gap. And unfortunately, those plus loans are at a higher percentage. They can go as high as 9%. And unfortunately, they have to be paid back from the first day that a student starts college. So yes, you, the parent, can borrow the maximum amount, but unfortunately, the maximum amount is going to have to start be paying back with that interest. So let's say you take out a $20,000 student loan, and if the interest that year is 9%, that's going to be a heavy amount of money to be paying back each month during the course of the year. On the right side, you see that we created a budget for the State University of New York at $21,120, and we're saying that for that student, the EFC that was produced was $15,000, and the student had minimal financial need of $61.20. With that amount of financial need, I doubt that the state of New York would come up with much financial need, probably just a Stafford student loan or maybe a college work-study program, because the State University of New York obviously provides a lot of good free, almost free tuition. In fact, the Excelsior Scholarship is described in the brochures put out by the high school. And what the Excelsior Scholarship is, that a student for the State University or CUNY, the city university, applies for financial aid through the FAFSA. And if it finds out that the student is eligible for TAP and Pell Grant, whatever the remaining balance would be on the amount of the then tuition at CUNY or SUNY would be met by the Excelsior Scholarship. So an example would be that the student files for financial aid and winds up getting $4,000 in Pell and TAP money. Then the Excelsior Scholarship offered by the state of New York would meet the balance towards that $6,000 tuition level. And of course, this changes every single year. So the tuition at CUNY and SUNY has been roughly about $6,000 to $8,000. It's slated to possibly go up a small percentage. And of course, all of this varies based on the particular college in the private column and the state university in that particular column. So again, to wrap this up, because I think I've spoken to you a good amount of time to kind of whet your appetite, you're certainly not late. You are right on schedule. You need to relax. You need to go through the process in a way that it can be somewhat exciting. We know that as juniors, the students probably went to a lot of college nights. They heard a lot of information. They probably received a lot of printed material. And if not printed material, they were referred to electronic material. And then during the summer, many of you as parents and students traveled around the country visiting schools. I know of one parent who went out to Sacramento, then they went to Wyoming, they even went to Chicago, they went to New Jersey, and they were all New Yorkers by trade. So we know that you did all that in the summer. So now's the time to start filing for college admission sometime now, soon, and then after October 1 to commence the process by filling out the FAFSA form. That again is the most important form. But remember, if a college wants the profile form, make sure that you check the listing of the colleges that want that form. And finally, sit back, do everything right. If there's some special condition that you want to make known to the college, you let them know about it, do a special letter. And that's also very important. Visiting the college financial aid office to kind of make your case, because you might get some financial aid, but if you don't have sufficient financial aid, then you could ask for a letter of appeal. You could appeal the process and say, I require more money to attend your college. What else can be done for me and for my son or daughter? Having said all of that, I wish you the best of luck, and I know the process works. Millions of students go through this annually. The colleges and universities are filled, their seats are filled. We know that students are graduating, getting jobs, and then becoming a member of our great society. So a college is a necessity for many. I know that it's argued today whether college is a necessity, but truly it is, not only for just getting a better job, but for rounding out the person. A high school diploma at one point was sufficient, whereas now a collegiate experience is needed, and a college degree, not even to mention the need in many professions for a master's degree, a PD, and then a doctoral degree, whether a PhD or an EDD. So congratulations for getting this far in the process, and the best of luck, and keep in touch with your college advisor at Syosset High School. Thank you and have a wonderful day.